All right, hey guys, just testing. Not quite 5 o'clock yet, but can everybody hear me? Can you see me? Let me know if there's any issues. Just give me feedback in the chat so I can know what's up. We'll get started momentarily. All right, it looks like you guys can see me, so that's awesome. So what's up? Welcome to your AP Gov review this afternoon. It is 5 p.m., so let's go ahead and get started. Good to see. All right, we got 277 people right now, so welcome. Really glad to have all of you guys here. I see you've been watching these videos a lot, getting prepared for this AP exam. To my students, glad to have you here. Hope you guys had a great time at prom last night. Glad that you're here with me right now as we get ready for this AP exam. Sorry, my phone's just going off right now too. So all these comments here and my phone keeps going. So let me just not even. All right, so got a lot of people here. So the comments are coming fast. So that's awesome. If you want to let me know where you guys are from, that'd be a good way to start us off. See where we got people from. I'm from South Florida, Pembroke Pines, Florida. So if you want to put in where you're coming from, where your high school is, where you're located in the country, that's a good way to start us off. All right, so let me let you guys know what I have in mind for this particular review. Here's the plan. I think the best thing that we can do and the best use of our time is going to be to focus on the FRQs. All right, how to write the FRQs. Man, that's coming in fast and furious. Beautiful. Man, all over the country. Look at that. Some people saying someplace outside the United States. Not sure if they are being serious or not, but welcome. Good to have all of you guys here. No matter what, really good to have you. All right, so yeah, like I said, my plan is going to be that we're going to look at the FRQs today. As far as content goes, you guys already know that I have great videos that get you through the content. So going piece by piece through the required documents, through the cases, through the vocab, I have videos for that. So I think that's still your best bet if you're just purely looking for content. However, what I plan to do is I will answer whatever questions I possibly can. So I want you guys to keep that chat going. When you have questions, ask questions, and I will pause periodically to go through those questions and answer as many of them as I possibly can. All right, so Taylor Moore is asking for a shout out for Coach Bowler's class. So there you go, shout out to Coach Bowler's class. I already lost where it's from because it's moving too fast. We got a lot of people. Some people trying to be a little inappropriate there, so I'll just ignore those nice people. But hey, what's up, Coach Bowler's class? All right, hope you good. All right, so like I said, we're going to focus on the FRQs, and then we can start getting to some questions, and I'll take whatever questions about content. But the first thing I want to do is I think we need to start with FRQ number 4. All right, I think that that's going to be the big one. That's the one that's the most different that AP Gov has ever had. We've never had an FRQ like this before. So the argument essay, we really got to know how to write this. And here's the thing, this might be a plot twist for some of you guys because you may or may not know. Hopefully my students are kind of familiar with this already. But what they tell you to do on the score sheet, well, not on the score sheet, but on the prompt, it's not exactly what they want you to do according to the score sheet. So there is a little discrepancy there. So I need to make sure that you guys know what to write so that you guys get the maximum amount of points that you can. By the way, before I jump into this all the way, just want to remind you guys, you have probably been seeing the links down below in my videos lately, like all the review videos and whatnot. It has a link to the AP Gov Ultimate Review Packet. I'm sure a lot of you guys have already purchased that. And if you have, again, if you want to give me any feedback, I hope that that's helped you. I'm sure that it has. You have the study guides for all the units with all the content, all the vocab, as well as having the big picture questions. So having those essential questions as well. Hope that those have helped for you guys. You have the Supreme Court case sheets, gives you all 15 cases on 3 pages, gives you the facts, the constitutional principle, and the holding for all of those cases. So those of you who have it, I'm sure that it has helped you a lot. Those of you who haven't gotten it, The link is down below, so make sure you guys check that out. It's not too late. It'll help you. You still have about 15 hours till the East Coast takes it, about 18 hours till the West Coast takes that exam tomorrow. So make sure you guys get that. And yeah, I'm sure that it'll help you guys. All right. So like I said, we're going to start off with the FRQ number 4. That's going to be our initial focus. And if you guys just give me a minute, I need to pull up and just share my screen with you guys real quick. All right, and what I want to show you guys is the sample that they've given us for FRQ number 4. All right, so you guys let me know. You guys should be looking at number 4. It should say, develop an argument that explains which of the 3 models of representative democracy, participatory, pluralist, or elite, best achieves the founders' intent for American democracy in terms of ensuring a stable government run by the people. Just want to do a quick check to make sure everybody is able to see that on the screen right now. So hopefully everybody is seeing a Word doc with that FRQ. Let me know if you can't see that. All right, just waiting a couple of seconds. I think there's a little bit of a time lag on this. And the comments are definitely moving really, really fast. We have 521 people on here right now. So if I miss your question, I'm not really answering questions just yet, but let me know. All right, so I'm going to assume that everybody can see this FRQ at this point. All right, so we have the prompt up, and it says to develop an argument like I already read. All right, I don't care about the content right now. Like I said, what I want to be going through with you guys is how to write this, okay? So the first thing that's important is about this. It says in your essay, you must, all right? And they are going to give this to you, whatever your FRQ topic is tomorrow. They're going to give you these bullet points, which is really good because that means you don't have to memorize exactly what to do here, which I think is a really good thing for everybody. It says you must articulate a defensible claim or thesis that responds to the prompt and establishes a line of reasoning. All right, and so what I want you guys to take a look at is now as I scroll down, hopefully you can see now I'm on the score sheet. And it looks like, did it bounce back? All right, good. So we have the score sheet, and it's showing us what exactly they want you to do. If you guys can't see the score sheet, just let me know. All right, if you're still seeing the prompt, that's not what I want you to be seeing. It does look like you're just seeing the prompt. That sucks. So no problem. There I am, problem solving. All right, back. And now you guys should see where it says scoring criteria, claim/thesis 1 point. All right, so that's what we should be able to see at this point. I'll just wait a second because I'm getting all the can't sees. Like I said, I think there's like a few seconds. All right, now I'm seeing the yes. All right, there we go. All right, good. So notice what it tells you to do for the claim/thesis. It says articulates a defensible claim or thesis that responds to the question and establishes a line of reasoning. And the scoring note here is really important. It says the response cannot earn a point for simply restating the prompt. Okay, the response cannot earn a point for simply restating the prompt. So I can see a couple of you are already asking what's it mean by line of reasoning, and that's what I'm here to tell you. That's the important part. So the first part is the claim or thesis. So that part you are essentially just restating the prompt, okay? So the prompt said, and since it's not letting me scroll and you can't like scroll with me, then I'll just tell you what it says again. It told you to develop an argument explaining which model of democracy, participatory, pluralist, or elite, best achieves the founder's intent for American democracy. So the first part of the thesis statement is the easy part. You just pick one of those 3. Participatory, pluralist, or elite. So you say, so let's just pretend like we're going to pick participatory. Participatory democracy best achieves the founder's intent for American democracy. And now comes the line of reasoning. You have to use the word because here. All right, so the word because. So participatory best achieves the founder's intent. So you start by restating the prompt because, and this part is not not an evidence piece. You're not giving an argument. You are just establishing where you're going. So participatory best achieves the founder's intent for democracy because it allows people to be involved in policymaking. So you've essentially just kind of defined what participatory democracy is, and even in some kind of vague way. So you just have to show that you are, again, establishing a line of reasoning. So participatory because it gives people the power to make policy. Pluralist democracy best achieves the founder's intent for American democracy because it allows competing groups of people to compromise and to make policy. Elite democracy best achieves the founder's intent for American democracy because it takes away some power from the people and ensures that only those who are most informed make policy. All right, so that's the idea here. Notice that I haven't referenced a required document. I haven't mentioned Brutus. I haven't mentioned Federalist Number 10. I haven't mentioned Constitution. I haven't elaborated. I haven't defended that claim. All I've done is make the claim that one of those three, pluralist, participatory, or elite, is the one who best achieves the framer's intention. And I've told what that thing is. So I've given you an idea of why I'm saying that. All right, if you panic, it's better to write more than to write less. All right, but really, your thesis statement, and this should be its own paragraph. All right, so that's something I'm going to get into. Your thesis, like every part of your answer, I believe should be its own paragraph. I've been an AP reader for 5 or 6 years now, and I will tell you from experience, the readers are reading literally thousands of these. Like I read like 2,500 of these FRQs last year. When a student makes it easy by putting spaces between their paragraphs, by keeping each paragraph as its own answer, it makes it so much easier for the scorer to find what they're looking for and to find your points. All right, so a thesis should be one single sentence. It should be participatory democracy best achieves the founder's intent because it allows people to be directly involved in policy making. All right, you guys, let me know if that made sense. That's what I'm looking at here. Thesis statement, short and sweet, but make sure you get that because I saw a couple of people commenting. Again, it's flying by pretty quickly, but people were asking about the line of reasoning, about the scoring. You need to get the thesis point because this FRQ is worth 6 possible points. All right, so you can earn up to 6 possible points on this FRQ. However, if you don't get the thesis point, you can only score a maximum of 1 point. All right, so you can only get 1 single point in the this 4th FRQ if you don't get the thesis statement. So the thesis statement is hugely, hugely important. All right, so make sure, absolutely positively, you guys have to have that thesis statement. All right, thesis statement and line of reasoning. All right, so hopefully everybody is feeling good about that part. Like I said, some other just small pieces of advice, making each answer its own paragraph will also help. I see some people mentioning about the rebuttal or the alternative perspective. Do not mention that in your thesis statement. Your thesis is you are making the claim of which side you are arguing in favor of. So if you are arguing for participatory, do not mention or talk about pluralist or elite democracy. All right. I just saw that one. No, do not bullet point paragraphs. I'll tell you that doesn't really matter. It's not like you would lose a point if you had a bullet point. However, from experience, I've seen this before. When students bullet point, they tend to start not writing in complete sentences. They start to write less than they should, and it's a very, very bad habit. So I would strongly encourage you to not bullet point. Like I said, technically you won't lose the point for that, but oftentimes it just puts you in a mindset of, oh, I'm bullet pointing. I'm just giving real quick details. Whereas for the AP exam, you need to write more. You need to elaborate, especially on this essay. So definitely do not bullet point would be my advice here. All right. And again, don't mention your rebuttal. Don't mention the alternative perspectives. Nothing yet. All we've talked about is paragraph 1. All right. I'm going to assume that we are good now. I see a lot of you guys answering each other's questions. That's good. So hopefully you're giving accurate information. I don't know. I can't check all that quickly, obviously. Again, welcome to those of you who just showed up. We're up to 625 right now, which is awesome. All right, what we're going to look at now is the next part of the FRQ. So just to hop back on here real quick, let me go up and show you guys the prompt again so we can get there. Let me take a quick swig of water. All right, now we are getting to the evidence paragraphs. All right, so we have articulated our thesis. We have established a line of reasoning. We've gotten our 1 point so far. So we are at 1 out of 6. We have 5 more points to get from this thing. All right. It now tells us support your claim with at least 2 pieces of accurate and relevant information. At least 1 piece of evidence must be from one of the following foundational documents. And in this particular case, it's Brutus number 1 and Federalist, or sorry, it's 3. Brutus number 1, Federalist number 10, and U.S. Constitution. Stone Johnson, yes, the first paragraph can only be 1 sentence. Some of you might drag that out into 2 sentences. You don't need an introduction sentence. You don't need anything except for your thesis. There are no points for frills. There's no point for how artistically you write. It's a very, I mean, the way we score these things, it's just, going straight by, how did you answer the prompt and what it needed to do. All right, so again, remember, if you don't get that thesis point, there's only 1 available point to you in this entire FRQ. So you need to get that thesis point. All right, so now moving on again, we're at the evidence paragraphs. So paragraph 1, thesis. Paragraph 2 is going to be your first evidence paragraph. Paragraph 3 will be your second evidence paragraph. All right, so we have thesis, paragraph 1, evidence number 1 is paragraph number 2, and evidence number 2 is paragraph number 3. I'm sure that's nice and confusing there. But what we're doing here is now we need to provide evidence to support the claim that you made previously. So let's go ahead and look at what you are expected to do here. So let me just get on here and scroll down for you guys so everybody can see what we are looking for at this point. There's me again, as you see me finding the thing. All right. So what you guys should hopefully be looking at this point, I want you guys to be seeing the scoring sheet for evidence and for reasoning. All right. And it looks like that is up, and that's what we're seeing. All right. So it's back to me. Why am I up there? What do you guys? Okay, there we go. Just making sure. This is a little bit delayed. All right, so here are your evidence points, and this is the most complicated part of how everything is scored. So here's my best advice to you, in all honesty, is just kind of follow the directions that I give you. If the scoring stuff doesn't quite make sense, your best bet is to err on the side of writing too much than writing too little. So do your best to provide accurate, relevant evidence and to explain it, and you'll be good. All right. To those of you asking about these questions, these are the official practice questions. For those of you who have purchased the Ultimate Review Packet, they are in the Ultimate Review Packet in the final review section. There is the released AP exam. And for those of you who haven't, it's available online as well through the College Board's website. So yes, these are real FRQs. These are made by the College Board. Yes, so these are not like teacher made. These are actual real things. So and these score sheets, again, are from the College Board. So I guess I didn't say that before, so let me make sure you guys know that. These are from the College Board. So this is the real thing. All right, so this is not some fake thing. All right, now, point number 1, again, it was your thesis. Point numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5 are going to be from the next 2 paragraphs, which mean that by far the most important part of the argument essay are the second and third paragraphs. Notice how the scoring goes for this. You have where you can either earn 1 point for providing a single piece of evidence that is accurate and it's accurately linked to the topic of the question. So you say something accurate from, again, our required documents in this particular FRQ were Brutus, Federalist number 10, or the Constitution. All right. But in that case, you don't actually show how it's relevant. So in other words, it is an accurate, Sauce God, do the right thing. A lot of time and work went into that. Don't be taking it. Don't take it for free. Paragraph. So in that first paragraph, you have the option of getting 1 point for an accurate piece of evidence, 2 points for that piece of evidence being both accurate and relevant. So for example, let's say that you say something from Brutus number 1. So Brutus number 1, he's most in favor of pluralist democracy. All right. So pluralist democracy, he could say something about the fact that he didn't want centralized power. You could say something that he didn't trust representatives to make good policy. That's what we're looking for. That is an accurate piece of evidence. But if you stop there and don't show why it's relevant, you would only earn 1 point. So the second point is to show how is that piece of evidence relevant. So the fact is that Brutus not only didn't want power to be held by, elected representatives far away from the people, but he wanted people to remain the source of power. He wanted people to be closely involved in their government. And that's a good example of participatory democracy. This kind of brings me again to one of the important things, which is to make sure that you define all relevant terms. So hopefully in your thesis statement, you already kind of did that, right? Where you showed that you knew what participatory or pluralist or elite democracy was. And then you're kind of good there, but show specifically why your piece of evidence that you are using is relevant. I saw a couple people ask about, does it need to be a direct quote? No, it definitely doesn't. And I do see somebody just answered that question correctly. No, it doesn't need to be a quote. You do need the ideas. And so again, you have the videos that go through line by line, really, and looking at the required documents to help get you there and get you as ready for that as you possibly could be. Main idea here is that Brutus, he doesn't like the Constitution. He doesn't like strong central government. He prefers for power to be decentralized, held locally by the people. So if you kind of have that in mind, that'll help you a lot. Federalist papers are arguing in favor of the Constitution. Number 10 argues for a large republic, a republic over a democracy. It argues that that's the best way to limit the negative effects of factions, all of that kind of stuff. All right. Brian asked, what if we use 2 pieces of evidence, but one isn't linked well? So most likely you would get 2 points for using, so look at where it says 2 points, uses 1 piece of specific and relevant evidence to support the claim or thesis. All right, so most likely you get 2 points total. Now the third point is for your other piece of evidence. So it says uses 2 pieces of specific and relevant evidence to support the claim or thesis. All right, so again, 1 point, evidence that's accurate but not totally relevant. 2 points, 1 piece of evidence that is both accurate and relevant. 3 points for 2 pieces of evidence that are both accurate and relevant. So notice that your first piece of evidence has to be from one of those required documents that it lists for you. All right, so one has to be from, in this case, Brutus, Federalist 10, or the US Constitution. Now, one of the really important things here is, all right, well, what do you do for the next paragraph? So we're on paragraph number 3, your second evidence paragraph. It says, use a second piece of evidence from another foundational document from the list or from your study of the electoral process. So let's just again say that you used Brutus number 1. You are allowed to use anything in AP Gov essentially, except for Brutus number 1 again. All right, you cannot use the same document twice. So you get to use that document once for your piece of evidence. You cannot use it twice. All right, where that's going to be the most relevant is for Constitution or if it gives you constitutional amendments. There is another released exam. It's a little bit more secret, so I'm not going to post it on here. It's the secured exam, but it does have a question where it mentions constitutional amendments. And I gave this one to my students, and without telling you what the prompt was, I did have students who, unfortunately, their first piece of evidence was, I'm going to make up something like, let's say, the 19th Amendment, and they would show how it was accurate, it was relevant, they'd earn their 2 points for that. And then the next paragraph would be like, and there's also the 14th Amendment, and they'd go on to talk about that. And unfortunately, that is viewed as the same piece of evidence. Even though it's a different part of the Constitution, even though it's not the same thing, it is viewed as the same piece of evidence. All right, so you guys cannot do that. So make sure you're using a different document. All right, it can. All right, go cool. Help us out, man. You're just messing up this chat for people. People are here trying to do well on this AP exam, and I can't see questions if you're doing this. So we have some people that are trolling, being a little bit annoying here. Not surprising. That's what people are going to do. Hang on. Sorry, guys. Bump, bump, bump. Just takes a minute there. Apologize for this. Just trying to clean this up a little bit for you guys. Hopefully this makes it a little bit better. But again, you guys let me know. Hopefully this is a little bit better now. All right, so again, the point I was trying to make there at that point was, sorry, just lost my train of thought there a little bit. Again, you have to use a different document. You can't use the same one. And that second piece of evidence does not have to be from a document. That's the other important part. It can be from basically anything you've learned in AP Gov. So it can be a Supreme Court case, for instance. It can be legislation that Congress has passed. It can be an example of something that has happened. What it shouldn't be is just something that's like a vague, like feels like argument where it seems like this is true or this or that. You know what I mean? So it needs to be some kind of evidence. So again, we're starting with documents is going to be our #1 choice. If you can't think of a second document to use, all right, go Supreme Court case, go piece of legislation. As a last resort is when we start getting to things that are a little bit more vague than that. Audra is asking, would amendments count as the U.S. Constitution? And the answer is yes. If it just says U.S. Constitution, that will include the articles of the Constitution, so the body of the Constitution. It will also include the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, but it will also include all 27 amendments. Okay, so yes, it definitely includes all of that. If they just say constitutional amendments, then that's only giving you the opportunity to do constitutional amendments. By the way, just as a thing, if it does give you constitutional amendments and you were to use, let's say, the First Amendment, and then for your second piece of evidence, you wanted to use like Article 1 of the Constitution or something like that, then don't just say the Constitution, be specific. Say in Article 1 where it talks about congressional power, blah, blah, blah. All right, yes, you can use your previous knowledge, previous concepts. Eilena says, but if it's asking about what the founders wanted, isn't it not possible to use amendments? And so the Bill of Rights, remember, that was ratified within 2 years of the original Constitution. So that's still the same people, essentially. So don't worry about that. And remember, even if it asks you, so if you get a prompt that's asking about a contemporary event, so it definitely could be, it's not as if you are limited to only what, this isn't a history exam. So you're not saying, oh, this is what they thought about that. What you're doing is you're linking the arguments that they made or what's included in the Declaration or what's included in the Constitution, and you're including that and saying, all right, this is how it could apply to this novel situation here. All right. Do you have to know all the amendments? You should know most of them. All right. What's up, Savannah? How you doing? Good to see you here. I'm surprised to see you here, but it's good to have you. I seen you saying some stuff. You're surprised how many people were here, but all right. The biggest thing that I wanted to go over. So again, sorry, there's actually one other thing that's really important here. This is going to be point number 5 on this FRQ. All right. So again, thesis and then evidence, you have up to 3 points. 1 for it being accurate, 2 for one piece of accurate and relevant, 3 points for having 2 pieces of accurate and relevant. All right, the reasoning point, this is going to be probably the toughest point to earn on this FRQ. This is where you are explaining how or why the evidence supports that claim or thesis. All right, so the response must have a claim / thesis to earn this point. By the way, same thing with evidence. Like it says, to earn more than 1 point, the response must have a claim / thesis. For reasoning, it says the response cannot simply restate the prompt to explain why the evidence supports the claim or thesis. All right. So what we need to do here is more. We have to actually explain how by providing evidence, by giving an example, by showing exactly how does the evidence from our document, from Federalist Number 10, or from the Constitution, or from Brutus, etc., how does it support our claim or thesis? All right. So again, you're going to do that for both paragraphs 2 and for 3, and that will most likely get you that point. All right. There's only 1 point available for reasoning. My advice, so you could do the reasoning for both, but you'd still only get 1 point. But that's the best practice, is to use the reasoning for both, explain both, and hopefully you'll get that point once, because that's by far the toughest point. It's really, really easy to miss that point. So again, my advice is just to do that as best you can both times. Use evidence, explain all that stuff, show how or why. So again, this is, remember, it's an essay. A lot of these FRQs, they're kind of short, they're sweet. This one's not. So you have 100 minutes to write these 4 FRQs. You have 40 minutes to write this particular one. Like, you have as much as you need, really, because they don't care. What's going to happen is your test administrator will come on and say, all right, it's been 20 minutes. We recommend you moving on to number 2. You don't have to, though. You can be doing whatever you want the entire time. But they allot you 40 minutes, which is plenty of time for this. So again, make sure that you're writing enough. Because like I tell my students all the time, the worst thing is when you know the information and you just didn't write enough to earn a point that you should have gotten. Like, that sucks. Don't let that happen, all right? Because there's a good chance that there will be something on here that either you just don't know, or maybe the question is a little confusing. Maybe the way it's worded, it just kind of messes you up. Maybe you thought it meant one thing, it meant something else. So again, write enough so that whenever there's a point that you know, make sure that the reader knows that you know it, because the reader is not allowed to assume anything on your behalf, okay? All right, so what I want to show you is now the last point, which is the rebuttal. It says you also have to respond to an opposing or alternative perspective using refutation, concession, or rebuttal. And I didn't pull up exactly the right thing that I wanted, so I'm going to kind of do that in the meantime. This one, I will tell you completely honestly, this one pisses me off. Because it's not that it's a bad question or it's an unfair thing. In fact, I think it's a good thing. It's making sure that you understand both sides. But what they tell you to do is different than what the score sheet says. All right, so notice what you guys have on your screen right now, and I'm going to keep that up for a minute, because that's what you guys are going to have. It's going to tell you to respond to an opposing or alternative perspective. And I will tell you what that makes people think is, oh, all right, I said pluralist, so now I have to respond to somebody that is saying participatory, right? And so the way I'm going to respond to it is I will say something like, oh, some people would say participatory, but really it's not participatory because here's why that one's wrong. So I said pluralist. Somebody else might say participatory because they would argue such and such, but they're wrong because blah, blah, blah. And that sounds like it's what they want you to do. However, it is not, all right? I cannot emphasize this enough. I think that the words that they are using there, that they are giving you, are misleading. I don't know if that's intentional or unintentional. I hope to God it's not intentional, because that would be really, really rude of them if it is. But let me show you guys now what the actual score sheet says, okay? So your score sheet for this point, what it tells you to do is different than what it tells you to do on the prompt. And so what I want you guys to do is not what it says on the prompt. I want you to do what the score sheet tells you to do. All right. So if you're with me, Again, this is, I think, one of the most important things that I'm going to share with you this afternoon. All right, now look at this. It's slightly different. Again, it says responds to an opposing or alternative perspective, using refutation, concession, or rebuttal. But notice the center column. All right, center column says the response correctly illustrates an opposing or alternative perspective. This is very, very different. Look at the last column under scoring notes. It says the response must be more than just acknowledging another view, such as, while some say, this is a different prompt, while some say Congress or the Supreme Court best advances the principle of equality of opportunity, I say otherwise. Okay? I hope everybody sees this major difference. Again, I'll kind of explain this to you. But what it's saying is, what it tells you to do on your prompt, it says to respond to. The center column is what you actually want to do. It wants you to illustrate an opposing or alternative perspective, and you have to show that you understand that. Again, look at now the top right column, all right? So we have 2 rows and 3 columns. Look at the one on the top right corner. The response must have a claim or thesis to earn this point. But then notice the second part. It says the response must identify an alternative perspective and demonstrate a correct understanding of the perspective. So what this wants you to do is, if you argued 2 paragraphs in favor of pluralist, your 4th paragraph, your concession rebuttal paragraph, is actually you acknowledging what somebody who would argue for pluralist or participatory, whatever one you didn't argue, what they would argue. So you are essentially giving the pro argument of this one now. All right. So you are arguing, you are showing what that argument is. Okay. So again, what that means, you are not just saying, some people would say elite democracy. However, they're wrong because that takes away power from the people. No. You are saying some people would say elite democracy because, and the evidence they would use is that the Constitution set up a representative democracy where we vote for elected representatives and they make policy, not the people. So yes, use evidence for this portion of the FRQ. What you need to do for this point is exactly the same as what you needed to do to get your evidence points. So you need to have an accurate and relevant piece of evidence that supports the thing you are arguing against. All right. I'm going to say that again because I think this is so important because it's not what it looks like it wants you to do. So you have your 2 pieces of evidence that support your claim. Now you pick a different argument. That's not what your thesis says. And you acknowledge, you say, others, however, may argue, and you identify what the other side of that is. And then what you do is, sorry, it's really hard to try to kick people out while I'm trying to talk at the same time. So I'm sorry for you guys. Hopefully I just got the right person. I think I did. Sorry. I'm sure that's annoying you. It's also annoying me. So I try to think, and I'm seeing that. But to the most of you guys, 709 of you, I appreciate you guys being here so much. I'm glad you're here. I'm hoping that this is helping you at least in some way. So again, on this last concession rebuttal point, you are identifying an argument that goes against what you are saying, but you are using evidence to show why somebody would believe that argument. Okay? So you are saying, my point was participatory. Here's why somebody would say elite. And you give evidence and you show why it's accurate and relevant. All right. Once you do that, my recommendation to my students is then write a 5th paragraph where you then reaffirm the position that you originally claimed. So you give this argument to show why you think that, or why somebody would argue that elite democracy is actually the best for the founder's intent. And then you're going to come over and you're going to say, however, my contention remains, and yes, it doesn't matter whether you write in 1st person, 3rd person, like that doesn't matter. You can do it either way that you want. You will say something to the effect of restating your prompt, your original thesis. So while this is a good argument, or while this raises a good point, my contention remains that pluralist democracy is still the best representation of what the founders intended. All right. So those are all your points. That is your sixth and final point. So again, 1 for the thesis, 3 points for the evidence, 1 for reasoning and explaining, and then the last point is here at the end for your concession rebuttal. For those of you asking about rebuttal, it gives you 3 options, right? It says about concession, rebuttal, or refutation. So you can refute, you can rebut, or you can concede. My advice is just concede, because just tell what that argument is. That's where your point is. Your point is for showing that you understand the alternative perspective. Your point is not for the concession or the rebuttal or the refutation. So my point is just concede, acknowledge, say that's a good point. However, what I argued is still the best thing. All right. So you guys, absolutely positively, you need to be familiar with these documents. This is 1/8 of your AP score comes from this FRQ. All right. Each of your FRQs is 1/8 of your AP score, because half of your AP exam is the FRQs. So make sure that you guys are familiar with these documents. Again, you have the videos that I hope will help you guys to do that. All right. All right. So that's everything I want to say about the Fourth Amendment. Or sorry, Fourth Amendment. Wow. The fourth FRQ. If anybody has questions on the fourth FRQ specifically, now's the time. So hit me with any FRQ number 4 questions. Again, I think that this is the one that requires the most amount of effort. This is the one I think that people are probably the least confident on. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to start looking at the chat. Is the alternative perspective the same as the thesis we made? No. So you're doing the opposite of the thesis you made. So if your thesis was in favor of pluralist democracy, the alternative perspective for this one would be for participatory or for elite democracy. Again, you're going to make the argument of what a supporter of that position would say. You are not arguing against that one, nor are you pointing out the weaknesses in your argument. So nowhere are we arguing the negative to say why a position is wrong, okay? All we're doing is saying, here's 2 pieces of evidence of why my thing is right, and here's 1 piece of evidence that shows why the other side kind of has a point. Basically, the College Board just wants to know that you can see both sides of an issue, all right? Hopefully, does that make sense? Philip says, why would you need an entire paragraph after rebuttal? A single sentence should suffice. You're right about that. Again, I think this is just good practice, that you're giving yourself a second chance at your thesis statement. So in that last paragraph, what I tell my students to do is to reaffirm their thesis, because remember, if you missed the thesis point originally, you only could earn a maximum of 1 point on this FRQ, no matter how good the rest of it is. So my advice is that last paragraph, rewrite your thesis statement in slightly different words, and maybe you'll earn the point there. Because if you earn the thesis anywhere in your FRQ, you can now earn the rest of those points. All right, so Philip, hopefully that makes sense. That's what I'm encouraging my students to do. All right. Pink Hernandez, can you reuse a document for an alternative perspective? Yes, that's the only time you can reuse a document. So when it's evidence number 1 and evidence number 2, that needs to be different documents. When you switch over to the alternative perspective, you can now use any document, even if you have already used it. Would you recommend us studying old FRQs? No, I wouldn't, because this is totally unlike anything that we've done before, so I don't think that would be a good use of your time. That's to Dua Ali. Riley, do we need to use a doc that it gives us when we acknowledge the other point of view? No, you don't need to. However, I would just point out that those docs are there for a reason. Those docs will support one or both arguments. So to me, my suggestion would be to start off trying to use one of those documents. And if you can't think of anything, then don't. Then do something else. That's fine. But I think that would be the starting point. Can you use personal pronouns? Again, my advice is to avoid pronouns whenever possible. If it's very clear and obvious when you say they, who the they is, then okay, it's not that big of a deal. But when you use a pronoun and you had just said something about Congress, and then you say the bureaucracy, and then you say the media, and then you say they, who is they? You know what I mean? So be careful when you're doing that. How long should each FRQ be? They're totally different. This one should be a 5-paragraph essay, essentially. The thesis statement should be 1 sentence, and that sentence will be your first paragraph. Marnie asks, do you need a specific document for evidence for the rebuttal concession? I think that's the same question somebody else just asked and I just addressed. Again, you don't necessarily have to use a document, but I think it's best practice to do so. Emily asks, can you use current events as a piece of evidence or for your rebuttal? You possibly could. It definitely can't be your first piece of evidence because that has to be a required document. So evidence number 2 could potentially be a current event. Again, I would just say be careful with that. You don't want it to become this vague sounding argument. You want it to be kind of fact-based. But if you are confident enough in your ability to do that, then yes, that could work. Do we need a separate conclusion? No, you don't. Again, Tamaha, I recommend that my students make their conclusion their thesis statement again. So yes, it's redundant. Yes, you've already said it, but that thesis statement is literally could be the difference between you getting a 1 out of 6 or a 5 or 6 out of 6 on this FRQ. So I tell my students to do it again. First paragraph and last paragraph are both thesis statements. Tommy, hopefully you got the answer again because I've answered that the last couple times. What exactly is conceding, good sir? When you concede, you are acknowledging that the other side has a good point, and you're saying that, yeah, that means something, and they have, that's kind of true. However, you're going to concede, and you're going to say, while that is a good point, and I acknowledge that that argument makes sense, it is still my contention that blah, 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 and you go in to restate your thesis. All right. So if you were to rebut or refute, you have to show why that alternative perspective is wrong. Don't waste your time doing it. You don't get any extra points for doing that. So don't do it. Just jump right into I would say concede. Save your time, save your energy. Do I have to explain why I prefer my argument? No, you don't have to do that. You do not have to do that, so don't. All right. All right. Dun, dun, dun. What documents do you need to know? Again, those are the required docs, so I'm not going to go over that here. First paragraph can only be 1 sentence. Yes. Explain the most important clauses. That's not what we're doing just yet. Sri says, would you include both pieces of evidence in 1 paragraph? No. I think everything should be its own paragraph. So paragraph 1, thesis. Paragraph 2, evidence number 1. Paragraph 3, evidence number 2. And in both of those paragraphs, you show that your evidence is accurate, that it's relevant, and that you use reasoning to explain how or why it supports your claim or thesis. All right, Sri, let me know that. Hopefully that helped. Paragraph 4, that's the alternative perspective. You're going to concede. You're going to show what they would argue and provide evidence that is accurate and relevant for that. Paragraph 5, restate your prompt. That's all you got to do. All right, that's all you got to do. Addison says, what do you mean that you can only get 1 point if you don't get the thesis? If you don't get the thesis, you can earn a maximum of 1 point. That's not my rule. That's the College Board. So you must have a thesis to earn the rest of the points because the rest of the points have to do with supporting the thesis or giving an alternate to your thesis. So you have to have a thesis. If you don't, you can't earn those points. Taylor, there's no answer to that one. She asks, how many sentences should the second and third paragraphs be? Enough for you to answer and to show that your evidence is accurate, show that your evidence is relevant, and to explain how or why it supports your thesis. So in my opinion, that probably needs to be at least 3 sentences, but that is not a hard and fast rule. It is possible that somebody could super efficiently do it in less. It is more likely that you might need more than that. So again, I'm not telling you to do a certain number of sentences. That would be bad advice, I think. What amendments and clauses are necessary? Again, that's kind of not exactly where we are at this moment. All right, some content questions there. Wait, first paragraph is only 1 sentence, says Mavis Dom. Yeah, it can be just 1 sentence. You don't need an introduction. You just jump right to the thesis statement. Avery, can you use Supreme Court cases for evidence? Not as your first piece of evidence, but yes, as your second piece of evidence required, or any Supreme Court case can be evidence for your second piece of evidence. It just can't be your first. Cecil says, so we don't need evidence for the conceding part. Cecil, yes, you should use evidence. What you need to do is you need to give an accurate and relevant piece of evidence for the alternative perspective. So Cecil, yes, definitely, yes, evidence for the conceding part. Sarai, where can I see the rubric? All right, in the ultimate review packet, under the section that says final review, I believe, yeah, it's called final review. And it says practice AP exam in parentheses from the College Board. That's where you can find that. So same thing, Sarai, Pink, both asking the same thing. Kayla is answering accurately. I appreciate you for helping me out there. Those are the documents that you guys need. In the evidence, so I have to simply state the evidence, or just scrolled away from me, so I lost you there for a second. Dun, dun, dun. Sorry, just lost you guys here a little bit. Can you please go over the different types of courts and other vocab in court cases related to the judicial branch? Again, not to sound like whatever, but I have a video that's 15 minutes that has all 15 cases that are exactly what you need for the cases. So I think that I would just recommend watch that video rather than me repeating stuff that's there. You know, that's where you guys can find it, and it will help you tremendously. My boy Ethan says Lamana, even though he... Lamana, would you recommend having two distinct arguments and one document for each, or one argument that both documents support, or does either one work? Okay, so you have one argument. Your thesis statement is your argument, right? So it's one argument. Then you use evidence number one, and you show that it's accurate and that's relevant to your argument, to your claim. Then you use reasoning to support and show how that piece of evidence supports your claim. Paragraph 3, you do it all again. You get a new piece of evidence, so evidence number 2, that's accurate, relevant, and you explain how it supports your claim. So Ethan, it's one argument, and it's two pieces of evidence that support that argument. So let me know. Hopefully that makes sense. That's a content question. Caucus and coalition, I mean, those are just two totally different things, so I wouldn't even frame it that way of saying what's the difference. A caucus is well, there's two different caucuses. One is a meeting of party members in Congress. So that's a congressional party caucus. And there's also the caucus for elections, that instead of having a primary election, some states have a caucus where party members meet to choose their party's candidate for president or for Congress or whatever it is. Coalition is just when you have people that are usually from different groups that might not get along, and they come together for some common purpose. So it could be interest groups that don't normally get along, but they come together, form a coalition because they're on the same side of a particular issue. So something like that. All right. Simply Live says, do we include counter argument and thesis? No, your thesis is just what your argument is. Do not mention alternative perspectives in your thesis. So do you concede your own argument? No. No, your argument is your argument. So you are saying that that's the right argument. You then acknowledge what the alternative argument is, and you concede and admit that while that raises a good point, but then you come back and you say your own argument again. So no. Let's see. All right. Do we need to put the reasons in? Yeah, I don't know what that one means. All right. I think my messages have been stuck a little bit. All right. Better be off. All right. Bureaucracy. If I'm not happy with my exam score, can I retake it? No. Where was the ultimate review packet? It's right down below. So if you just scroll down, you'll see it. And the information about the video, it's there. All right. You can get the ultimate review packet there. All right, what sort of SCOTUS comparison would you expect to see with Shaw versus Reno or Baker versus Carr? Probably a voting rights thing. There's actually a good case. It's not a good case, but it's one that could be. It'd be Shelby County versus Holder would be the one I'd actually expect to give you a very specific case. All right, so let me do this because the questions are a little all over the place. I feel like we've covered the FRQ portion really well. Those of you who have questions, you can kind of go back. All right, so what I want to do is look at the third FRQ, which is the Supreme Court comparison. I think we'll be able to go over this a lot more quickly because there's a lot less to this one. All right, so what we're going to look at is the Supreme Court comparison, and let me just share my screen with you guys. Have I been on screen this whole time? Like for the last 10 or 15 minutes? God, sorry about that. Should have just had like a thing up for you guys. That has got to be brutal. I apologize for that. Yeesh. Whew. Okay, so let me go ahead and put up the Word doc. And so you guys will now hopefully be seeing. Oh, good. Google is not responding. That's what you want to see. I wonder if you guys can even hear me right now. I'm going to go ahead and just keep on talking. Oh man, it's frozen. All right, I'm back, I hope. I'm sorry. Can you guys see me? Because I know it was gone. Yo. Said we can see and hear you. You're gone. Devastated. What happened? Oh no. Yeah, Google Chrome just crashed on me. All right. Hear not see, God is real. Okay, okay. Can you guys see me? Am I back? Please let me know. Because I'm panicking now because I feel really bad. Yeah, he's back. Can't see you? No, but I can hear you. All right, you can hear me, but you can't see me because I see that my green light is not on. So, no, 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 no. All right, lots of no's. Can hear, can't see. All right, what about, man. All right, let me know. I'm just still waiting a minute. You can see the doc. All right, you can see the doc. All right, that's good. That's what I need. If you can see the doc, then that's good. All right, now you, all right, all right, all right. Awesome. Man, sorry about that. It's technical difficulties, man. Stress a person out. All right, so what I'm trying to show you guys right now is FRQ number 3. That's a Supreme Court comparison. There's basically a couple important things that I want to go over with you guys on that. All right, so come back up here. I see everybody, all my people. All right, so hey, we only lost like 100 people on that, so sorry about that. You guys can see the FRQ. It should say number 3, monthly town meeting, Greece, New York, blah, blah, blah. All right, So I'm assuming we're good. We're going to go. All right, so part A says identify the constitutional clause that is common to both. Again, I'm not caring about this content right now. All I'm caring about is what you need to do. Part A for number 3, it's going to be just like this. Part A is one sentence. You're going to say, and here's your answer, quote, the constitutional clause that is common to both, and then write the names of both cases, is, and identify the answer. All right. And I see a couple people already did put the right answer there. Christina is right. This is the Establishment Clause. All right. So number 3, first paragraph, letter A, the constitutional clause common to both is blank. All right. That's all you guys got to do. That's will get you that point. So that's a really simple point. You have to just make sure that you know your constitutional clauses. All right. Again, the Ultimate Review Packet has that stuff. I'm not going to keep, advertising that, but that is one way to do it. All right. Next thing is part B. Part B has 2 points that you're going to be able to earn for it. All right. So part B, you can earn 2 points, and it's basically 2 things that you have to do. You have to tell what the facts are of the required case, and then you have to explain how those similarities or differences would lead to the ruling in the new case that you didn't know being similar or different. All right. So again, just to show that, let me just scroll down, share my screen with you guys again. So I'm probably going to pop back up here in a minute. Sorry for the technical difficulties of the last couple of minutes. I appreciate you guys for being patient. Again, you guys have a lot of great content for you in other videos in the packet, but this gets to stuff that, you just kind of need somebody to walk through it with you. All right, so again, A, one sentence. What's the constitutional clause common to both? Part B, provide the prompt information. In this case, it told you to give the facts of the case, so that's all you got to do. Give the facts of, in this particular case, it was Engel versus Vitale. All right, here is the first big piece of advice that I need to give you guys for how to write this FRQ. Make sure, if it says facts, that you are giving the facts, okay? Facts and holding are not, I repeat, are not the same thing. Facts and holding are not the same thing. And I know when I say that, it's like, oh, duh, of course, facts and holding are the same thing. One is called facts and one is called holding. But trust me, it's really, really easy to just give the holding of the case and feel like, I showed them I knew what that case was about. And yeah, you probably did, but look what this says. All right, I'm going to scroll down and show you a different part of the scoring sheet here. This is for a different case, but again, this comes from College Board. It says discussion must include the McCulloch case facts. So in this case, we'll just pretend like it says Engel. Discussion must include the Engel facts and not just the holding to earn the point. Must include the facts and not just the holding. So if it asks you for facts, you must provide facts. If it asks you for the holding, then you must provide the holding. If it asks you for the constitutional principle, it's going to do that in part A. So in part A, you give the constitutional principle. Part B is either facts or holding is what it looks like. Obviously, we don't know. We've never done this before. We only have 2 examples of this. But from the best we can tell, part B is either going to have you explain how the facts or the holdings are different or similar. All right. So Marty asked for an example of facts versus holding. Yes, absolutely. Facts of Engel is that the state of New York passed a law that would have students engage in a non-denominational prayer at the start of the school day. Or New York had public school prayer at the beginning of a school day. Those are the facts of the case, is that they basically were promoting school prayer in public schools. Notice that is not what the Supreme Court ruled on it, okay? The ruling, the holding of that case is what the Supreme Court ruled. The holding is that public school prayer is unconstitutional and violates the Establishment Clause, all right? So the facts what happened. It's like the story before it became a Supreme Court case. All right. So the facts in Engel is that the school required public school prayer. The holding is that that violates the Establishment Clause and that public school prayer is not allowed. And the constitutional principle is just that. It's what part of the Constitution did the justices use to make their ruling. So in this case, it's the Establishment Clause. All right, so facts, they were requiring prayer at the beginning of school days. The holding is that public schools cannot have state-sponsored public school prayer. The constitutional principle is it violates the Establishment Clause. All right, hope that helps. So again, make sure that you are doing what it says. So A and B should be two really free points. All you really have to know, these are things you can know before you go into the test. If you know the facts of each case and if you know the constitutional principle for each case, you're good. You just got 2 out of the 4 points on this FRQ. The third point, so we're still in B, is now the explain. So it says, explain how or why that information is relevant to the second source provided in the question. So meaning the new case. So how are the facts from Engel relevant to the new facts that you've just been given in the Greece case? Okay. Again, the notes say, in order to earn the second point in part B, the response must correctly relate specific information from the required source to the new source. So we are explaining. So that means we are elaborating. We are being specific. They both have the Establishment Clause in common. We already said that for part A. And then, Naomi, that's what I'm doing. You listening? That's the whole point of this. I'm giving you tips for the FRQ. What are you asking them for? They haven't taught this before. That's me. I got you. So that's part B. Part C, I want to spend a minute on. All right. And I have what I think is amazing advice for you. I have shared this with my students in the last few days. I wish I had thought of it earlier, honestly, so that I could have had them been doing this for the entire year. But really, this just popped into my head like 3 or 4 days ago when I was scoring their practice FRQs. All right, so part C, it looks like it's going to be pretty much the same no matter what FRQ you get. Again, we only have 2, so I can't say this for sure. But what I can tell you is that the 2 that College Board have released so far, they both are very similar, where it appears that they're going to want you to describe an action that somebody can take in order to, that disagrees with the Supreme Court ruling. All right. So it says, describe an action that members of the public who disagree with the holding could take to limit its impact. Other versions of this could be, describe an action that Congress could take if they disagree with the holding or to limit the impact of the holding. Describe something the president could do. Describe something a bureaucratic agency could do. Describe something a political party could do. Describe something an interest group could do. Describe something the media could do. All right, so here's my prediction for number 3, part C, is that it's going to look just like this. Describe an action that some either person, group, or institution, so public, interest group, party, media, Congress, president, bureaucracy. What could somebody do in order to limit the impact of this ruling? All right. I have 2 main pieces of advice for how you should write this. Number 1 is to write more than one answer. All right. So on 3A, for example, 3A, just to go back to that one real quick, it says identify the constitutional clause. You can only give one answer for that. You cannot try multiple times for 3A. You will not earn the point. So if you said Establishment Clause and also free exercise and also free speech and also right to bear arms, you're not going to get that point. So 3A, you got to give one answer and one answer only. So get in there, give the best answer you can, get out. No, there's not a curve. The AP test is not curved. That's a urban legend. It's a myth. For 3C, you can write as many actions as you want. And if any one of them are right, you will earn the point. So what I strongly encourage you to do, and I don't see a ton of my students on here right now because I want to make sure that they do it especially, but you guys too, I appreciate you for being here. So I want you to do this as well. write multiple actions. Because here's the thing, is that depending on the context of the particular case that they're giving you, and it's going to be a new case, it's going to be a case you likely haven't seen before and haven't thought about before, okay? Sometimes some of the answers don't make sense based on the context. So I will give you an example. My students became a little bit too obsessed with writing about, oh, the president could ignore the ruling if he doesn't agree with it. And sometimes that's true, or Congress could just, Congress could ignore the ruling. Sometimes that doesn't make any sense, okay? So there's a case, like I gave them an FRQ, and the companion case is one about a kid who gave a speech in a school, and he got suspended for giving the speech. And the Supreme Court said that he's allowed to get suspended, right? And then people are writing about how, oh, if they don't like the ruling, then the president could not enforce it, or Congress could choose not to enforce it. That doesn't make any sense. The president doesn't suspend a high school student from school, neither does Congress. They don't make laws about that. You know what I'm saying? So like the context matters. So my best advice for you guys is to make sure that when you're writing this, give multiple answers. Congress has several things they can do. All right. Congress can pass new legislation. If you mention new legislation, tell what that legislation would do. Okay, so Congress in this case would pass legislation that would say that town hall meetings may not begin with a prayer. Okay, constitutional amendments, same thing. Don't just say constitutional amendment, even though that is a great answer. What would that constitutional amendment be? Make sure your answer is specific. All right, so constitutional amendment is a great answer. It's the best answer. But what would that amendment say? All right, if you talk about Congress and their power of the purse, well, what would they do with their power of the purse to limit the impact of that ruling? If people are protesting or they're demonstrating, or if PACs are or interest groups are supporting a candidate, for what purpose? All right, make sure that it is specific in the context of that given FRQ. All right, don't just say about passing a new law. Don't just say an amendment. Don't just say that they would support a candidate who's against it. What would that candidate do? Okay, so it needs to be in the context of this particular scenario. The other thing is, and so this is what I was going to say, I think is my best advice. So again, big piece of advice number one, give more than one answer. Second piece of advice for this one is, I think that there's an answer that should work for just about anything. And that is linking this to a constitutional amendment. All right. A constitutional amendment will always overturn a Supreme Court ruling. Ignoring it sometimes can work. Legislation sometimes can work. Protesting sometimes can work. But constitutional amendments can always work. So now I know I can already hear you in your head. You're like, all right, but what if they don't give me Congress? Because you might get Congress. If they give you Congress, that's awesome, because Congress can propose a constitutional amendment that would expand freedom of religion or include or prevent, public prayers and government meetings. All right. But if you don't get Congress, you're still good. What can the president do? So listen up. All right. I'm going to pause here and tell everybody, listen up to me right here, because I got you. This is how you answer number 3, part C, no matter what the question is. All right. Okay. If they give you Congress proposed constitutional amendment, tell what that amendment is. If they give you the president can use the bully pulpit to put pressure on Congress to propose a constitutional amendment that would blah, blah, blah. Got it? President doesn't actually have a role with constitutional amendment, but if you just go, this is your backdoor way. All right. So you're going to finesse this. You're going to go from president and you're going to turn this into really a low-key Congress one. So you're going to go president can use bully pulpit, which will to force or to influence Congress into making an amendment. What can interest groups do? Interest groups can lobby, can put pressure on congressmen to propose a constitutional amendment. What can political parties do? Political parties can put something in their platform that puts pressure on Congress to propose a constitutional amendment. What can members of the public do? they can contact their representatives and put pressure on them to propose a constitutional amendment. All right, I see a lot of debate going on about labeling. You guys are worried about stuff that matters almost not at all instead of what's going to get you this point. So I sincerely hope, I know that's only like 10 or 15 people that are going here and are going on about labeling right now. Hopefully the other 585 or so of you were listening to that, because I just gave you the answer to 3 part C. All right, President, bully pulpit, put pressure on Congress to propose an amendment. All right, interest group, lobby Congress to propose an amendment. Members of the public, contact their representatives, tell them they need to propose an amendment. Like, this is gonna work. All right, as far as the labeling debate, I have seen a lot about this. Again, I have read in Utah for the AP exam 6 years in a row. All right. Election, that's a good one too. So you could vote for people who will propose a constitutional amendment in Congress again. All right, so the labeling thing, I'm going to tell you this is a really and truly a non-issue 99.9% of the time. Technically, the College Board has changed their answer on this year to year. So I don't freak out about this. There's an argument in favor of each side. The argument in favor of labeling it is that it helps the reader to know exactly what you're on, and it keeps them honest, right? Like, they know, oh, this is part A, this is part B, that's part C. That's good, okay? The good part about not labeling it is that if it's not labeled, or if, like some people were saying, you cross out the letter of the labeling, is that technically the scorer can find your answer to any part of your FRQ in any part of your FRQ, okay? So if, for instance, you didn't put let's say you don't label and you answer part A correctly in part B, if it's not labeled, you'll still get the point. If it's labeled, you may or may not get the point. And the honest answer is it depends every year. I've been in some years, they give you the point and they say give it to them. Some years they say don't. I will also tell you that I've probably scored like 15,000 of these over the years, like the real thing. And this has happened like one time ever. So like, don't freak out about this. Like, this really doesn't matter that much. So you can't write multiple answers, even though you said you'll get credit based off of what you said right. Sauce God, for pretty much everything except for 3A, yes, and except for your FRQ, like your argument essay. But for part C, absolutely yes, you can write multiple answers. FRQ number 1, you can write multiple answers. FRQ number 2, you can write multiple answers. The times when you cannot write multiple answers, 3A and the argument essay. All right, 3A, you got one chance, one answer. If it ever says the primary reason or the main reason, again, you only get one answer. If it doesn't say that, if it just says identify or describe an action, you can do as many actions as you want. And I encourage you to do that. I can't tell you how many really crappy FRQs I have scored in my life that they suck and the person gives like 4 answers and like the 4th one is right. If that happens, they get the point. All right. So that would be, that's my advice for you guys there. So don't worry so much about the labeling stuff. It really doesn't matter that much. All right. So again, yes, Cecil, write complete sentences. Write complete sentences. Max, yes, you don't technically need the documents, but it helps. So you do need evidence, and they give you documents. So I would try, if at all possible, to use the documents that they give you. Abigail, if you identify multiple things and the next part asks you for elaboration on part A, do you do it for each answer you put? That's up to you. And so you kind of, to get that point, if you're elaborating on something that's not right, then you're not going to get that point. So you kind of have to choose what's the best way to do. So yeah, you might have to do it for multiple ones. I mean, technically you don't have to. If you do it for one of them and it's right, you get the point. The point would be that if you gave multiple answers, you're probably doing that because you weren't 100% sure that you were going to be right. In which case, then yeah, you should elaborate on multiple of those answers. Wait, so what is the clause in cases like McDonald versus Chicago? And I lost that one, it's gone now. So I don't see it anymore, but the clause is the right to bear arms through the 14th Amendment is the answer to that question. which somebody else looks like they answered, so that's good. Crazy Bunny says, so I can put wrong answers, and as long as one is correct, I get the point. Yes, except for 3A, except for if they tell you to identify or describe the primary reason or primary. So primary means one, best, most important. So if it says what's the primary purpose of a political party, there's only one answer, and it's to gain power and win elections. If you give 3 answers to that, you would not get the point. So if they say primary or fundamental reason, something like that, then no. That means that's code for only one try. When it says to identify the constitutional clause, again, one try. Thesis statement. You can't write both thesis statements. That doesn't make any sense. So you have one. You got to write one thesis statement, and you got to use evidence to support that thesis. So you can't do that multiple times. Hopefully that makes sense. For the argument essay, what you could do, though, if you have time, you could write additional evidence paragraphs. So you could do a third piece of evidence if you wanted to. And if your second piece of evidence was trash, but your third was right, you would get the evidence points for your third piece of evidence, even though you didn't get it for the second. Okay? Renee, I haven't showed you guys the first and second FRQs, but I will shortly. The first is the one that gives you a scenario. The second is the one that gives you some kind of data. Lindsay, yes, absolutely you can write an outline. And in fact, I'm glad you said that. That's a really good idea when you guys are starting your argument essay, is figure out what's the easier side to argue. Because for one of them, you need 2 pieces of evidence. For the other, you only need 1. So like, don't sit there and try to argue what you believe in real life, because that may or may not be the best thing for you to do. You know what I mean? What do you have 2 better pieces of evidence on? So whichever one you can make 2 good arguments for, use that one as the one for your thesis. If you can only do 1 piece of evidence, make that the alternative perspective. So figure that out before you start writing. Arjav asks, what percentage should I get right for a score of a 3? It's hard to say that. It depends. It changes year to year. Last year was a little over 70%. It was pretty high scoring. It was about 85% for a 5. It was about 70% for a 3, and it was somewhere in the middle for a 4. So you needed pretty high scores last year. Don't worry, the multiple choice isn't too bad. If you've been watching those other videos, the content, you'll be good there. Again, I'm trying to focus you guys on the other half. Alina asks, what are the informal powers of the judicial branch besides, well, informal powers, they don't really have informal powers. That's more of a presidential thing where he can do things and use the bully pulpit and make executive agreements, things that aren't in the Constitution. That doesn't really apply for judicial branch. Simply Live, if you write multiple answers, if one of them is right and the others are wrong, do you still get a point? Yes, unless it's, like I said, for some of those other ones. Tips for writing argumentative essays. All right, scrolling down on me again. Sorry about that. Bump. Would they ask on C how the different parties could affect the result? Again, they could. And if they do, I would say that they would make it a part of their platform. They would recruit or nominate candidates that would support a constitutional amendment that would undo whatever it is in that thing. Again, just make sure that you don't just say constitutional amendment, that you actually get specific. What would that constitutional amendment actually do? I gotta admit, I am curious about who this marry me person is. Like, that's got to be one of my students trolling me, right? But I just don't know who it is. The evidence just has to be, okay, I lost it. Scroll down. Brian says, how should we link these FRQs to the enduring understandings? Should we just memorize them and know which goes? I wouldn't worry about doing that, Brian. If you understand the cases, if you understand the required documents, you're going to be good. I would ignore the whole enduring understanding thing. I don't think there's value in trying to memorize that. Your time could be better spent on other things. What's up, Mr. Gallo's class? Glad you guys support. I appreciate it. Thanks for showing love. Selective incorporation is how the Supreme Court has applied the Bill of Rights to the states since 1925 on a case-by-case basis. So essentially, they have forced the states to also be restricted and be limited by the Bill of Rights, because originally it was only the federal government that was restricted by it, and now state governments are as well. Again, that's something the Supreme Court does, case-by-case basis. It was through the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment is what provided the basis for that. Do you have to know which presidents were Democrats and Republicans? That's a good question. Like, kind of technically no, but I have seen graphs where it gives you, or tables where it gives you names of presidents, and it might not have their party. And it does expect you to know that Obama's a Democrat, that George Bush was a Republican. So again, I wouldn't really like spend time like trying to memorize that. Hopefully you guys just kind of know that. But yeah, you kind of should know that. What is the influence of an iron triangle? So with iron triangles, you have three parts, right? You have congressional committees, interest groups, and bureaucratic agencies. The idea is this is a symbiotic relationship in which each part benefits. So you have this long-lasting relationship. And the congressional committee, what they do is they essentially provide electoral support for the congressman. That could be through their membership and having people vote for them. It could be through having PACs and raising money and campaign contributions. But the idea, again, is that the interest group does something to support those members of Congress so that they can get elected and reelected. What they get in turn for that support is now they have access to those policymakers, to congressmen. They have access to the members of the bureaucratic agencies, and they get laws passed by Congress and regulations passed by the agencies that are favorable to the needs and wants and desires of that particular group. All right, so that's iron triangle. There are a few people asking for that, so there you go. Astrax says Mary Mila Money is from my class. That doesn't help me though. I still don't know. Biggest fan. I appreciate you, I guess. I don't know. I still think you're trolling me though. Yes, this will be on YouTube. It'll be available when it's done. It'll be there, so you still have access to it. I don't think I have it publicly available, so you'll need to use this link. All right. Jana asks, so even though McDonald enforces the Second Amendment, if we were to identify the constitutional thing, we identify it. So it's both. It's both the 2nd and the 14th. So honestly, I don't know if they're going to ask you that or if they'd view that as a little bit of a trick question. It is a Second Amendment case because it's the right to bear arms. But then they're applying the Second Amendment through the 14th to apply it and incorporate it, make it binding on the states. All right. So hopefully that helps. So my answer, if I got that question, I would write both the Second Amendment and the 14th Amendment. All right. Tips about the multiple choice. Honestly, I really don't have tips about the multiple choice. If you know the content, again, I hate to sound like I'm spamming and being like, oh, buy my ultimate review packet. But if you have the content down, especially from that packet or from the videos, or if you had a good teacher who, you've learned this stuff, the multiple choice won't be bad. All right. I guess my biggest advice would be to read the question carefully. You have a ton of time, by the way. They're giving you 80 minutes for the multiple choice. You do not need anywhere near 80 minutes. So take your time. Make sure you read the question accurately. That's the biggest thing that goes wrong. Graphs, make sure, again, that when it asks you about something supported by the graph, that is actually in the graph. Don't start making assumptions that you shouldn't be making. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think that's kind of the big thing there. Joseph asks, what are all of the important clauses we must know of the Constitution? I definitely couldn't give you like an all kind of a thing. That's a little bit too broad, but I can give you a few big ones off the top of my head. For sure, the Commerce Clause. For sure, the Necessary and Proper Clause. Those are both important by name. Definitely the Due Process Clause and the Equal Protection Clause. Those are both in the 14th Amendment. The first two I gave you, by the way, Commerce and Necessary and Proper, those are both in Article 1 of the Constitution about Congress's power. I would also say the First Amendment with the Establishment Clause, Free Exercise Clause, Free Speech. Those are all three obviously really important. 10th Amendment, Reserved Powers Clause. Those are ones you definitely want to be familiar with. And if I didn't say supremacy, then Supremacy Clause as well. All right. Mirna asks, what's the difference between 527 groups and PACs? Technically, 527s have to be nonprofit. PACs can be made by anybody, for-profit, nonprofit, religious, otherwise. They're not going to ask you the difference in that. So what I tell my students is, if you see a question and it mentions 527s or 501Cs or 529s or PACs, view them all as the same thing. What you need to know is that they are allowed to spend money independent of the candidate. They can raise an unlimited amount of money. Like, that's what's important. Those specific things, it's, don't worry about that kind of stuff. Can you go over the finesse again? I think he's talking about FRQ number 3, part C. Again, it's just try to link whatever they give you. It's saying, how can somebody limit the impact of a Supreme Court ruling? Get it back to Congress proposing a constitutional amendment. So the president using the bully pulpit to put pressure on Congress to propose an amendment, members of the public contacting their representatives, putting pressure on them to make a constitutional amendment, interest groups lobbying for an amendment, political parties nominating, recruiting candidates who will support a constitutional amendment, putting on their platform support for a constitutional amendment, Congress actually making the constitutional amendment, like stuff like that. All right. Which acts are going to need to know? Civil Rights Act for sure. Voting Rights Act of 1965 for sure. Title IX of the Educational Amendments for sure. So these are all like civil rights ones. All right, lots and lots and lots of questions. 14th Amendment is for selective incorporation and whatever other amendment is involved in that case. All right. So nervous for tomorrow? Don't be nervous. I got you. That's what you're here for. You guys got this. All right. Don't worry. Don't worry. That's why you're here. So you don't need to be nervous for tomorrow. Hey, can you tell us if we need to know the articles and sections, constitutional clauses, like we need to know the number for the amendments? Not in huge detail. I think you should know Article 1 is Congress. You should know Article 2 is the executive. You should know Article 3 is the presidency. Beyond that, the only other one you might want to know by name is Article 1, Section 8, specifically enumerates the powers of Congress. But no, I do not think you actually need to know that by name. It obviously can't hurt, but that's not the kind of thing you need to be memorizing. Gargab 27, no, you got to wait. So it's 80 minutes, and then they will collect the multiple choice from everybody. You'll have a break, and then you'll do the FRQs. So no. Abigail, Title IX of the Educational Amendments. It's like gender equality for any public school that receives federal money. They have to essentially have equal opportunity for girls if they have things like clubs or sports. If there's one that guys can do, then girls have to have access to that as well, or they're not allowed to get any federal money. Should we study? Okay. Can we bring food into the exam? Yes. That's more of your school thing, but yes, technically. All right, with identify, you guys just need to do like one single sentence. Identifies you should love. Identifies are awesome because you don't have to do very much. So let me go ahead and show you guys the EpiPen FRQ. So a few of you were asking me to do this. So let's do this. We are now at a full hour and a half. Those of you, if you have been here the entire time, let me just give you guys some love. I appreciate you so much. I can't believe you guys are staying with me like this. I really appreciate it. I hope that this helps you. I hope that you guys feel, really confident when you walk into that exam tomorrow. When you sit down, when you take that, you guys are going to be good. All right. Hey, there you go. Crazy Bunny has a mnemonic for your articles of the Constitution. Never heard that one before, but there you go. All right. All right. So the EpiPen FRQ. So this is what number 1 FRQ is going to look like. This is the one that I'm actually the most worried about with my students, because this one is going to give you some kind of scenario. And again, like number 3, it's a scenario that is intentionally designed to not be something you have seen before. It is supposed to be new. And so I'm a little nervous because I could see where people could read the scenario and be like, yo, what the heck is this thing talking about? And they could freak out. They could get a little nervous, not know what's happening. Don't panic. Relax. Even if you don't really know what the scenario is talking about, like this one is honestly not that bad. It's telling you that a company is like overcharging for medication and it wants to know what Congress could do. There is another one, which I'm not going to post, but I'll mention it briefly. It's the released one, the secure one. And it gives a hyper-specific scenario about the Federal Reserve and monetary policy. Like, it's super specific. Those of you who don't know, I also teach AP Macro and AP Microeconomics as well. So I am good with Federal Reserve. Like, I know it inside and out, all right? I'm a boring person that likes to read books about the Federal Reserve. I like to teach my students in macro everything about it that they need to know. And if any of them read that prompt, they'd be like, yo, what is this talking about? Because it is really detailed. Don't worry about that. FRQ number 1, all 3, or the ones that we have, they are set up very, very similarly. So we got this. Part A is going to say, describe a power that somebody could use to address the scenario. Okay. Noah, yes, these are actual FRQs from College Board. Bradley, dude, I understand that FRQ, it was intimidating. Okay. Again, what I'm trying to show you is don't worry. So part A is going to say, describe a power that either Congress, the president, the bureaucracy, maybe the judiciary could take to address the scenario. Maybe the state government. All right. So Congress, president, bureaucracy, judiciary, maybe a state government. But it's a power that somebody could take to address the scenario. The biggest thing you absolutely, positively must do for this FRQ is you must address the specific scenario. All right, so I'm just going to pull that up real quick. I'm going to show you guys the score sheet for this one. And hopefully this is going to really put your minds at ease, because this first FRQ, it can be really intimidating, but it totally does not need to be intimidating. Notice the point. This is, and oh, by the way, here's the other thing about this, why this one makes me nervous, is that there are only 3 points on this one. There is a part A, a part B, and a part C. Those 3 points combined to be worth 1/8 or 12.5% of your entire AP score. Okay, which if you are not mathematically challenged, that means that part A is 4% of your AP score. Part B is approximately 4% of your AP score. Part C is 4% of your AP score. That means that it is hugely important. All right, it is hugely important. So make sure that you are doing enough. Remember how we were talking about, can you give more than one answer? Number 1, part A. This is one where you should absolutely write more than one answer. All right. Describe a political institution, a political behavior, or a process in connection with the scenario. Notice what the scoring notes say. It says the response must, that is not an optional word, must reference content from the scenario and provide a description. All right. Must reference content from the scenario and provide a description. So what that means is you cannot just say, oh, Congress could pass a law that would change this policy. Congress could use congressional oversight over the bureaucratic agency that's in charge of this area of policy. Oh, Congress could use their power of the purse, blah, blah, blah. That's totally true, and it's right, and it's good, but you must use the scenario. So for FRQ, number 1, you have to use the scenario, all right? So in this case, make sure you mention the EpiPen. Make sure you mention, whatever it is. The EpiPen, the price of this medication, but it needs to be specific to this particular scenario. Just had to take a quick swig of water there. All right. So yeah, they could pass bills. They could amend the Constitution even. They could use congressional oversight, but make sure it is specific to the scenario. And again, my advice, give more than one. A few people had asked about the difference between identify and describe. If it had said identify, then you don't need, all you really got to do is sit there and be like, oh, Congress could pass a law. That's identifying. The amendment that gave voting rights to women was the 19th Amendment. Okay, like you don't have to say much. If you're describing, you have to give more detail. That's the bottom line. It's just a little bit more detail. Part B is now saying in the context of the scenario to explain how your answer in part A achieves that goal. So let me just go back and read the actual prompt real quick. The prompt there says, in the context of the scenario, explain how the use of the congressional power described in Part A can be affected by its interaction with the presidency. All right. Now you good, LaMoney. Stick with that one. Don't do the Ronald thing. Don't do that. All right. So explain how the interaction with Congress. So what we're doing now is Part A is one branch by itself. All right. One part of government: Congress, president, bureaucracy, judicial branch. Part B now is looking at how does that branch, how will it affect or be affected by another branch? I think my screen just went black. So you guys let me know. But I think I'm black. I don't know why it went black. Dun, dun, dun. I'm sure you guys will start yelling at me on the chat for a minute. Black screen, he's gone. It went black. The vid is gone, but can you hear me though? I do see the black screen. Dun, dun, dun. All right, yep, I'm back. All right. I don't know why that just went black. It's okay. Let me put the score sheet back up because that's what we're trying to do here. You guys are not trying to see me. Got my window open, get a little natural light in here. It's a little bit too bright in here. Let me just screen share that. Ah, come on, where are you at, Word? My Word doc just went away, was not an option. Come back over here. Sorry, guys, I apologize for the technical difficulty here. All right, we good. All right, so now I can stretch again because you guys can't see me. Oh. All right. So part B is now you're showing an interaction. So how the president could affect this congressional action. So he could veto it. He could give an executive order enforcing or telling or write a signing statement telling the bureaucracy how to enforce it or how not to enforce this particular law. He could fire a head of a bureaucratic agency that wasn't enforcing it the way he wants him to. Stuff like that would be good to put. Okay. Part C, again, in the context of the scenario, explain how that interaction between Congress and the president can be affected by linkage institutions. All right, so linkage institutions, we are talking about 4 things. I'm going to ask you guys. I want to see it. You guys tell me. We have 4 linkage institutions. I want to chill for a minute. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to take a sip of my water because I've been talking straight for, an hour and 41 minutes. That's a long time. I appreciate you guys, by the way, for still being here. My question to you guys that I want to see the answer to here in the chat, identify for me our 4 linkage institutions. See some answers coming up. That's good. I like what I'm seeing. Definitely like what I'm seeing. Hey, the Raptors beat the Sixers. Kawhi, man, he went off 39 and 14. Man, that dude is real. He is real. All right, so we have political parties. We have interest groups. We have the media, and we have elections. All right, that is good to see that you guys are familiar with that you know your linkage institutions. So the idea here is, all right, how could one of those, so you just got to pick one linkage institution. And by the way, you need to mention it specifically because I had students write this FRQ and they'd just be like, oh, linkage institutions could affect the president by blah, 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 blah. But they never showed that they knew what a linkage institution is. So you have to show that you know and understand what the vocab is, all right? So you got to show that you know what a linkage institution is. So mention one of them, all right? Media, interest groups, elections, political parties, and now show what that particular thing could do. So what could a political party do? What could the media do? The media could choose to report on the EpiPen issue every single day. This would put pressure on Congress and the president to make policy addressing this issue. What could interest groups do? Again, interest groups could engage in grassroots lobbying, or they could lobby members of Congress to support new legislation to prevent EpiPen maker Mylan from increasing its prices that much, something like that. Elections. People could vote for congressmen who say that they would support new legislation that would limit the ability of this EpiPen company to be able to raise prices like this. All right. So hopefully you guys are good. There's a lot of completely off-topic stuff. We got a lot of just kind of trolling going on. The EpiPen I keep talking about is in the prompt, bro. If you look at the prompt, it says consumers complained after EpiPen maker Mylan, blah, 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 blah. That's the scenario in this particular prompt, all right? Again, the scenario, I don't care about it. They're going to give you some random scenario of something you've never heard of. That's the point. Don't panic if it has complicated vocab or jargon and you're like, oh my God, what is this thing talking about? Don't worry about that, all right? Don't worry about it. What you need to do is stay confident. Know that you understand actions and powers of Congress. You know actions and powers of bureaucracy and of the presidency and of states and of the Supreme Court. Yo, Skip Bayless here. It's about time. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Welcome. Skip Bayless, the king of all trolls, is here. He might have to get kicked out in a minute, though. We'll have to see about that. How much longer are you streaming? I don't know. I'm getting tired. I'm getting hungry. I'm going to eat me some chicken wings. And I got to get ready for some Game of Thrones action this evening as well. So I don't know how much longer. I'm just kind of going as long as I think that it might be beneficial to people. All right. So hopefully this is. So I tell you what, let me do this for a minute. We'll go to FRQ number 2 in a little bit, but this will be a chance for you guys to ask questions. All right. So I will answer some questions. Of course, spicy chicken wings. What do you think this is? Of course, they gotta be spicy. Chicken wings. All right. I seem to have definitely. Ethan is telling me to kick out Iqbal. I mean, he's probably right about that. I do know he's Skip, of course, but I appreciate him for that. If it was really Skip, I would have to ban him from this. Let's be serious. That would be a really random thing for Skip to be doing on a Sunday night when he could be like trolling Steph Curry fans or something. Where do we get free practice tests? Well, I don't know about free, but there's practice tests on that Ultimate Review packet. You can also search, go to the College Board's website. They'll have one for you. And they'll have an old one. That's the old version of the test as well. Super PAC versus PAC. All right, so my guy, Water Bottle 747. Super PAC versus PAC. All right, so what do they have in common? Both can raise unlimited amounts of money that they can spend independent of a candidate. That's called independent expenditures. All right, they can both do that in unlimited amounts. What's different about them is that whereas anybody can contribute to a super PAC, including corporations and unions, corporations and unions are not allowed to donate to a regular PAC. So that's one main difference. And then the second main difference between a PAC and a super PAC is that while PACs are allowed to give some money directly to a candidate, super PACs can engage only in independent expenditures. So that's why they are called independent expenditure only committees. That's the real name of a super PAC. All right. Regular PAC, again, can give $5,000 directly to a candidate. The rest of their money they can spend independently. So they are mostly the same, but two key differences. All right. Man, it's really, really bright over there. Let me just kind of close up this window shade just a little bit real quick. Sorry, that glare was getting me a little bit. All right. Now you see the second guitar back there. Okay. Sophia, due process clause, difference between the 5th and the 14th Amendment. All right. So what we're talking about is the 5th Amendment. And if I miss a question, just, you can ask it again, I suppose. 5th Amendment is applied to the federal government only. So it's just telling you that the federal government cannot take away your life, liberty, or property without due process of law. In the 14th Amendment, it now says something slightly different. It says, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So this becomes the basis for incorporation. All right. It is all about the 14th Amendment. Adding that word state Yeah. All right. Skip, definitely not no 201 pounds, more like 170. Bump. Citizens United versus FEC ties into PACs. Yes, Citizens United is what set the groundwork for the creation of super PACs to allow corporations to have free speech and to be able to spend an unlimited amount of money in support of a candidate as long as it's independent of that candidate. Do I know any rumors about potential FRQ topics for tomorrow? Definitely not. That would just purely be a guess, and there's nothing wrong with a guess. I'm going to go with your number 3 FRQ, so the Supreme Court case comparison. I'm going to say it's going to be like a voting case, so I think it'll be Baker versus Carr or Shaw versus Reno. My prediction doesn't really mean anything at all because I have 0 ideas, so it means like nothing. I'm guessing that it won't be Engel and that it won't be McCulloch just because those were on the samples that they gave us. As far as your argument essay, a couple topics that I think could be, I think that a question about the Electoral College, does it support or oppose democracy? I could see that being one. I could also see one about either the Second or the Fourth Amendment, as far as security versus liberty kind of thing going. So about gun rights versus gun control. I could also see the Fourth Amendment with like, search and seizure versus should the government be able to collect metadata without a warrant to keep us safe. So that's another, just kind of guess. FRQ number 1, there's no way to guess. It's going to be something totally random. Again, the point though is just that it's going to be about what is an action that some branch of government can take. B is going to be about an interaction between that branch and another part of government. And part C is going to connect that to the public or a linkage institution, again, to see how that all interacts. So again, my advice for FRQ number 1, part A, multiple answers. Just like number 3, part C, multiple answers. All right. Yes, the SCOTUS essay will have the specific required case that you need to discuss. They will give that to you. How should we time each FRQ? That's kind of depending on every person. They give you what they say is 20 minutes for numbers 1, 2, and 3, and then 40 minutes for number 4. But again, you have 100 minutes. That's a lot of time. Part A is just 3 points. B and C are 4 points. And then the 4th one is 6. So the last one definitely takes the most amount to write. Emily, the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare is based on age. So old people get Medicare. So we care about old people and we aid the poor. All right. We care about old people. We aid the poor. Medicaid is for low income persons. Danny says, what are some different powers of House and Senate we should know? All right. So that's a good question. You definitely want to know that the House is more formal, more rules, more structured. They have things like a germaneness requirement. You must remain on topic. They have things like open versus closed rules, where you either can or cannot add an amendment. If you can add an amendment, it still must be on topic. It must be germane. They have strict time limits for how long debate can last. And they also have a rules committee. The Senate, on the other hand, filibuster holds and riders are all allowed. So there's no time limit. There's no germaneness requirement. You can add amendments on anything, any topic. That's a rider, so an unrelated amendment. Filibuster, this long speech that's off topic, or it can be about anything. So those are a few differences. A couple other key differences. You have the House. All tax and revenue bills originate in the House. If no candidate won the majority of the electoral vote, the House would determine the winner of that election. And the Senate, they have confirmation powers. So they confirm nominations like judicial nominations, cabinet nominations, ambassadors, that kind of thing. They also ratify treaties. So you have some differences there. So that's power differences. For part B, I thought the president putting pressure on the bureaucracy would be within the executive branch, not Congress. I'm confused. Marnie, so yeah, that's kind of true. But what it could do is, remember, the bureaucracy is what actually enforces and implements the law that Congress passed. So if the president puts pressure on the bureaucracy to enforce it in a different way than Congress intended, then it is, in fact, a check on Congress. So this is up to how you write that, but that could absolutely be a correct answer. Tiza, I don't know if I said your name right. I apologize. Can you go over the argumentative essay? I did for like the first 45 minutes on this video. So not to be a jerk, but I would encourage you to go back on that. All right. What do whips do in Congress? They work with party leadership to try to ensure that members of their party vote with the party. So if their party is voting for the bill, that they vote, all members vote for it, or if they're trying to encourage people to vote against it, that they vote against it. And they inform like the speaker or the majority leader of the how that vote total is coming and whether or not they should actually call that for vote. Keynesian versus supply side, I do see some people that are saying some accurate things about this. Keynesian is more democratically supported. It's the idea that the government should spend money when the economy isn't doing well. So if we have either a recession, high unemployment, or low GDP, however they want to say it, then Keynesians say, all right, the government should just spend money to fix the economy. Supply siders say if we have that, again, a bad economy, then the government should cut taxes, and that will jumpstart the economy. So conservatives, Republicans typically like supply side. Democrats and liberals are more likely to support Keynesian economics. Could you explain the Electoral College? Again, like there is a video about that. Really quick version is that it's used to elect the president. The framers created it because they didn't trust the people. They thought that people would be uninformed, would make poor choices, would get easily fooled or tricked. So they established this Electoral College to kind of be a barrier between the people and the election of the president. It is an example of elite democracy. The way you win the presidency is to get a majority of the electoral votes. That means 270 electoral votes to win. It also, as your friend Hillary Clinton knows, it means that the popular vote does not matter at all. So you can win the popular vote by almost 3 million votes, and you don't get to be president. You get to be president if you win the majority of the electoral vote. That's it. So this affects candidate strategy because they're going to focus on swing states, because each state, 48 of those 50 states have a winner-take-all system. So if you win the state of Florida, for example, by one single vote, then that candidate will win all of the electoral votes from the state of Florida. So candidates will focus on states like Florida that are known as swing states. These are states that could go either way. They sometimes vote Democrat, sometimes vote Republican. And as another bonus, they might have a large number of electoral votes like Florida does. They ignore states like California and Texas because even though those states have a lot of electoral votes, everybody knows Democrats are going to win California. Everybody knows Republicans are going to win Texas. So they focus on states that are more competitive. All right. Sophia says, can you talk about Senate and impeachment? Okay, so the House has the power of impeachment. So they impeach the president. That's with a simple majority. To impeach just means to be indicted or to be charged. If the president is impeached by the House, he will then go on trial and the Senate holds the trial. So the Senate's role in impeachment is to hold the impeachment trial, where they will either convict and remove the president, or they will acquit the president and he'll stay being president. We've never had a president actually be removed from office, even though we have had 2 that were impeached. Part of the reason for that is it requires a supermajority of senators to actually remove a candidate from, or to remove a president from office. Liberal versus socialist. The AP exam is not going to get involved with socialists, so don't worry about that. Pork versus earmark. That's a good question. Hopefully the AP test won't put that as a multiple choice question. That could be kind of tough. Pork barrel is legislation that brings back jobs, money, or tangible benefits specifically to a district, whereas earmarks is just where when money is apportioned or set aside for a specific thing. They go hand in hand. So an earmark would say, all right, this money is, we're going to spend $40,000 on project X. It could be an example of pork, but it doesn't have to be. Earmarks really, they were made illegal back in like 2011. So I don't think the AP test will go over earmarks. Yes, Amelia, the test is tomorrow, so you're in the right place. Christine Wong correctly points out that some governors can still use the line item veto, but presidents cannot. Captain Facepalm, civil rights protect groups of people, especially minorities, from discrimination. So it protects groups of people from discrimination. So the government is taking action here to protect people from being discriminated against, whereas civil liberties are protecting individuals from the government. So it's saying the government cannot take away your free speech. The government cannot take away your right to bear arms or search you illegally or unreasonably, all those things. So civil liberties are protections that individuals enjoy from the government. Civil rights are the government protecting people from discrimination. All right. More people that want to know who Marry Me LaMoney is. Don't we all want to know? Don't we all? Kelly, line item veto. All right, we already got that. When the president dies, the VP stands up. Yes, and then it goes to the Speaker of the House, would be next in line. Sometimes the Speaker of the House is from the opposite party of the president, like right now. So that would be really awkward. People voted for Donald Trump to be president, but if he and Mike Pence are both gone, it would go to Democrat Nancy Pelosi. Yes, the line item veto is unconstitutional. William Liu describes what it was correctly, but they are not allowed to do that anymore. Can you go over? Dun, dun, dun. All right, difference between monetary policy and fiscal policy. So monetary policy is done by the Federal Reserve. It has to do with the money supply and interest rates. So basically, if the Federal Reserve is worried about inflation, so we have high inflation, then what they are supposed to do is lower the money supply and raise interest rates. So notice that those two variables are inversely related. So they should lower the money supply and raise interest rates. That will take money out of the economy, and that will help bring inflation down. All right, so if inflation is getting out of control, they would lower the money supply and raise interest rates. If, on the other hand, the economy is doing poorly, we have high unemployment, recession, falling GDP, the Federal Reserve would do the opposite. They would increase the money supply, so throw money into the economy, and they would lower interest rates, and that would be effective. Fiscal policy, on the other hand, this is done by Congress and the president. All right, so fiscal policy, Congress and the president are in charge of. This is tax and spending policies. So if it's anything about Congress spending money, budgeting, appropriating money, if it's anything about taxes, it's fiscal policy. All right, fiscal policy is very political, obviously. Monetary policy is supposed to not be political. The Federal Reserve is our central bank, but they are also an independent regulatory agency, which means that they are not supposed to be worried about politics. We want them to make the best decision for the economy as they possibly can, not trying to help, the current president or Congress or hurt the current president or anything like that either. All right. Aldo's got jokes. Play a song on acoustic guitar about soft money versus hard money. I think I'm going to have to pass on that one. That doesn't sound like a good idea. 2 or 3 pieces of evidence in the art. So you only need, Michael Bernard, 2 or 3 pieces of evidence. You need 2 pieces of evidence to support your answer. Those pieces need to be both accurate and relevant. They also then you need to explain how or why they support your answer. You are absolutely allowed to do a third one if you so desire, but you don't need to. Your 2 best will be what's scored. A lot of people still asking about PACs versus 527 groups. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Again, the difference is that one's a nonprofit, others can be for-profit. It doesn't matter. They're not going to ask you that. The point is, with 527s, with 501cs, with PACs, the idea is that they are influencing politics, they are raising money, that they are trying to gain access to policymakers. So don't worry about that. You don't need to know. Civil rights versus civil liberties. Again, I literally just answered that like 3 minutes ago, so you can go back, or you can also watch the videos I have that answer that, but I did literally just answer that. Joseph mentions trustee versus delegate. So if a congressman acts as a trustee, That means that that person believes that they should vote in on bills the way that he or she thinks is best, even if it goes contrary to what their constituents want. When they act as a delegate, that means that they do what their constituents want, even if they might disagree. All right. And politico is when sometimes they act as a trustee and sometimes they act as a delegate. All right. Bump, bump, bump. All right. Second FRQ, good idea. We're going to do second FRQ and then we're going to be out. All right. So I agree. The purpose of this is not to be all about the content. It's about the FRQ, really. So I'm going to hit that. And then I'm gonna get out of here. You guys have the ultimate review packet. You guys have the videos. You got a bunch of stuff there that will get you everything that you need to know. All right. So let me just flip over here. Let me show you guys my screen. So again, I will disappear, get off your screen for you. You're welcome. Should have probably done that a long time ago for you. All right, FRQ number 2. This is the last one. I know it's out of order. If you are arriving late, we did number 4 first, then 3, then 1, and now 2, just for fun. The reason I'm doing this one last is I think that there's not that much to say about it. I think this is the most straightforward of all of them. In this one, you're going to have some kind of graphic, table, map, data, chart, possibly a cartoon, and you're going to have to answer A, B, and C. Now, there are 4 points for this one. Part A says, identify the most common level of education spending by states in the Southeast. Identify is a 1-sentence answer. Please don't link the packet for free. It's available at a very reasonable price. A lot of work went into that. So Danny, if you want it, you know, it's pretty easy to get. It's not a whole lot of money. It'll be worth it. And if you don't want it, then don't get it. And that's cool, man. But I would ask that people not share that for free. That is, you know, copyright stuff and personal property and all that kind of thing. So identify the most common level of education spending by states in the Southeast. 1 single sentence. That's all you got to do. So what's the answer? Southeast. You guys have, you can see there, it looks like it's $8,000 to $9,999. I know it might be kind of tough to see that, but that's the right answer. Obviously on the AP test, you'd be able to see it a little bit easier. $9.99. All right. Cheaper than Princeton, cheaper than Barron's. And I'm telling you, you get to very specific stuff, exactly what you need. Study guide that's filled out for you, bro. It's amazing. All right, B says, describe a similarity or difference in public education spending by state or region as illustrated in the information graphic, and draw a conclusion about that similarity or difference. All right, and then C, just so you notice the prompt there, it says, explain how public education spending as shown in the information graphic demonstrates the principle of federalism. What I want to do is I'm going to show you, I'm going to scroll down. We're going to look at the score sheet because, again, like I've told you before, I'm not really worried about the content here. So let's just go ahead and see the score sheet because that's what matters the most. And then we can get out of here, let you guys go on your way studying. We're approximately just under 13 hours to the AP exam on the East Coast. So just under 16 hours for those of you on the West Coast. So we are getting there. It's happening. You guys are going to be great. You guys got this. Hope that this has helped you a little bit. All right, your point for A, 1 point for just identifying the data. Part B, the first point in B is for describing a pattern, trend, or similarity or difference. So this is a pretty simple one. States in the Southeast spend less on education than states in the Northeast. States in the West spend less than states in the East, like stuff like that. Like it's not too tough. Like just find something. Again, for both A and B, you can give, well, for B, I should say, you could give multiple answers. Part A, you couldn't. Part A says identify the most common level of education spending. So you have to, again, have one answer to answer that and stick with it. But part B could be multiple answers. All right. Part B2, draw a conclusion for that similarity or difference. So when you say that states in the Southeast spend more money on it or spend less money on education than states in the Northeast, Then saying something like, this is likely because states in the Southeast are more conservative or more likely to be Republican than states in the Northeast because they are spending less on education, and liberals or Democrats tend to favor more education spending. So something like that would be the conclusion that you're looking for there. Again, what you've written so far on part number 2, part A is 1 sentence. Part B is probably 2 sentences, maybe 3 sentences, but it's not much there. Part C, explain. Notice it sets it up for you. In the scoring criteria, it tells you exactly how to do this. It says explain how blank in the information graphic demonstrates blank. All right, so explain how public education spending as shown, so the fact that it's, northeastern states spend more of it than southern states do or southeastern states do. How does that demonstrate the principle of federalism? In this case, the idea hopefully is straightforward. It's that each state gets to choose their own education policies, and then they get to spend what they choose. So some states choose to spend more money on education. Some states choose to spend less money on education. That's really all there is to that one. So that's all I want to say about about FRQ number 2. So yeah, looks like most of you guys are kind of not listening right now anyway. A whole bunch of randomness in the thing. So yeah, if anybody needs anything, you guys have the videos. You have, hopefully everything there for you. I really, really, really hope that this has helped. If you say the entire time, my hat's off to you. Again, I think now it's time to get back to the content. Hopefully you're good with, being more comfortable with the FRQs and what we're doing here. All right. We just really want you to shout out our teacher, Kearney B. Okay. Well, there you go. I read your message out loud, so there you go. No, I'm not going to do that. The budgetary process. So the president proposes a budget. Congress then actually makes the budget. Congress has the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, a nonpartisan agency to help them. The president has the OMB, Office of Management and Budget, again, a nonpartisan agency of economists to help him. President proposes, Congress actually makes and passes a budget, and then the president signs it or vetoes it. But ultimately, he's got to sign it. I still don't know what government is. Well, will this stay up? Yes, it'll stay up. It's not publicly available though, so you need the link. All right, but yes, it is available if you have the link. Or actually, it might be publicly available. I don't even know. But yes, it's going to be there. You can still watch it later. Mrs. Tella Williams, thanks for sending your students to me. I appreciate you. What kind of production was this video? I'll let you know in a minute. I'll save that for last. Yes, there's a guitar. I have a guitar. No, I don't think anybody wants to hear me play that. You might think that you do. Get a good laugh at me, but I'm good. I'm going to pass on that one. There are videos that do exist of me singing and playing guitar, but hopefully you guys will never find those, and I don't have to worry about that. Mrs. Faust, what's up? Thank you again for sending your kids here. Can I play an A chord for good luck? Yes, I can play an A chord. I can do that. What do I recommend cram-wise? I only started studying 2 weeks ago and still I'm not confident for the test tomorrow. All right, so that's a good question for you guys. As far as cramming goes, I think the required documents and the required cases are the most important things, because remember, one of your FRQs is about the cases, one of your FRQs is about the documents. That combines to be worth 25% of your AP exam, and there will be multiple choice questions on those things as well. So the absolute most bang for your buck, I think, is looking over the cases and looking over the required documents. Again, I do have videos that do that quickly, and then I have videos that go over each document, each case more specifically. At this point, 13 hours away, probably recommend the video that does all the cases in 15 minutes total and all the documents in 15 minutes total. You know what I mean? I'm not going to get any sleep tonight. Well, I hope you sleep a little bit. You gotta, sleep a little bit, get some rest, eat tomorrow morning so you be ready to go. Is there a curve this year because of redesign? That shouldn't have anything to do with it. The AP exam is not curved, it's standards based. So no, I don't know what the scoring is going to be. It does change year to year, but we'll see. Cameron, Renee, Hallaby, what's up? And Miss Russo as well. Spent so much on the rings. All right. Gideon is about attorneys at a state level. Yes, that states now must provide a person who can't afford one with an attorney. As I do this, don't mind me. I'm just going to, since I'm staying on here for another minute, I'm going to text my wife real quick and tell her to go ahead and order some chicken wings because, I am hungry. So she's going to order those wings, and in just a minute or two, I'll probably go pick those things up and get my chicken wing on. All right. So Raleigh Hudson Brown, what's up? Miss Page, again, nothing but love. Yes, more chicken wing talk. All right. So if that's all we got, if it's just shout outs at this point, Public spicy wings are slept on. You're right about that, man. You are absolutely right. I'm not having those tonight, but those are good. You for sure right. Juan Torres, much love. Mr. Wiggins, again, same. Bureaucracy, it's the part of the executive branch that actually is in charge of implementing and enforcing the laws. So they actually carry them out and put them into place. I would probably wait and watch Avengers Endgame tomorrow night. I would, focus on the AP exam, get that college credit, get that money. More schools than ever before are accepting a 3 on this AP exam as college credit. The state of Florida, my state, it now requires college students to have a government credit in college, no matter what your major is. So for all my Florida people, this exam will help you out tremendously because you have to take a gov class in college. So if you don't get this credit, you're gonna have to do it again anyway. So, what's softwood light through yonder window? Okay, nice. Have you seen Endgame? No. Stop talking about it, please. It's just not nice. Congressional oversight. So Congress is going to be holding hearings and investigations into the bureaucracy, forcing the heads of agencies to come and testify. They are basically looking over the executive branch to ensure that they are doing their job properly, that they are enforcing the laws as Congress intended for them to do. My wife said she's going to go ahead and get those chicken wings going, so we're good. Yes, so that's congressional oversight. So if they are not pleased with what the agencies are doing, they can pass new legislation to change or alter their their administrative discretion. They can limit their funding, so power of the purse. They can take money away. They can actually even abolish the agency as well. That's an extreme version, but they are allowed to do that as well. Tips to memorize required stuff? No, not really. I'm really not a mnemonic device kind of guy. I'm more of a, learn it, understand it, and it'll be easy kind of a guy, which I know isn't what you wanted to hear. So sorry about that. Bare minimum to bare maximum. Hey, it worked for you, bro. I saw that score. I thought of you getting that 5. So congratulations. Already answered that. Due process 5th and 14th. 14th makes it on states. The 5th was just the federal government. Correct me if I'm wrong, but U.S. vs. Lopez says that preventing the selling of guns is inhibiting gun stores' business. No, Christine, that's not what U.S. vs. Lopez is about. Sorry. It's about the Commerce Clause, and it was saying that Congress cannot pass a law banning guns at schools based on their Commerce Clause powers. That does not substantially affect interstate commerce. Therefore, regulating guns at schools is a state issue, not a federal issue. So that is a Commerce Clause and 10th Amendment reserve powers case, not a gun case, even though this story has to do with guns. So I understand that it can be confusing, but yeah. All right. I think that we are pretty good. I wish you guys all the best tomorrow. Again, I truly hope that if you did get that ultimate review packet, that it has helped you, that you have found great benefit from it, that when you take that exam tomorrow, that you're going to feel prepared, confident, and that even better yet, when you walk out of that exam tomorrow morning and you're all done, that you feel good about things, that you feel like you were taught well, that you were prepared, that you had everything that you needed to get a 5 on that AP exam, or if your goal is a 3, to get a 3, whatever it is for your goal. All right. So I hope that packet helped you. I hope that all these videos, I've seen the views have been going crazy the last few days. So I see you guys putting in the work right now, putting the effort, cramming at the last minute. I really hope that it helps. If you guys are going to watch some games tonight, enjoy Game of Thrones if you're going to do that. So you have a little bit of balance, but you know, this is an important night for you guys getting ready for that exam. So I wish you guys all the best. All right. Until next time, you already know, but people have been asking for it. So this has been a La Money production. See you guys.